You're telling an engineer when to push a button to produce a laugh from people who don't exist. There is the joke that someone says his family came over with the Normans, and we reply, are you liking it here?
If laughing is nothing you do, you would be referred to as a kind of a grouch, griesgram, or as sort of Viennese dialect put it, if you don't laugh. Wenn's nicht lachst, bist der Vater und der Vater bin boring, fucker, granscham, for school, Aufwärtshaarer, langweiliger Wichtel, Spaßgrenz, Unguss, and the worst case, Anstandsdame, a chaperone.
In the UK, chaperone Japanese knitweed is a single female clone. Her cries are the only sounds to interrupt the otherwise quiet countryside. The greater the noise level, the more the analogue signal is disturbed, slowly becoming less usable, and so my garden grows. I watched a play in my garden, The Birds, Greek, Ornithes, a comedy by the ancient Greek playwright Aristophanes. It's been acclaimed by modern critics as a perfectly realised fantasy, remarkable for its mimicry of birds. There is the...
Fabian, Dave, Granschirm, Griesgram, Grouch, Iseklim, Vater, Bienfer, Boring, Fucker, Sauertopf, Orbitara, langweiliger Wichtel, Spaßgrenzen, Ungustel, and the worst case, Anstandsdame, chaperone.
Well, I was sitting opposite her one day with my back to the window, listening to her flow of rhetoric. Du Vögel.
Du Vogel, you idiotic bird.
She proposed regulation that would require high-frequency traders to stay active in volatile markets.
The plot of the birds revolves around an Athenian who convinces the birds to create a great city in the sky and thus regain their status as the original gods. The Athenian eventually transforms into a bird-like god himself and replaces Zeus as the king of the gods.
Du Vögel.
You bird.
Gradually, however, that focus shifted more towards revolutionary and political theory. Our creations came to be viewed as a threat to the kingdom.
Du Vogel.
Charles XII of Sweden, his body here pictured on its journey to Stockholm, was shot dead while inspecting his army's trenches. He had heard of the hypothesis of Lamarck, but it seemed to him to proceed upon a vicious circle, and he dismissed it as wholly inadequate to account for the existence of animated species.
Grouches are often described as misanthropes and pessimists. This is not a short-term bad mood, but rather a character trait. In common sense, a grouch is a person who is in a bad mood or grumpy. From this, it follows that wisdom is not a knowledge of many things, but the perception of the underlying unity of the warring opposites.
Without this understanding, montage is merely a succession of images reminiscent of D.W. Griffith's continuity editing. Yet, even though a grouch may show happiness at anyone's misfortune, including his or her own, a grouch would never admit to being happy. If there be no ears to hear, there will be no sound. Animated shows have also gone silent, except on the rare occasion that canned laughter is used, often as a parody of a sitcom. In that case, do things have no before and no after?
Just in case you were wondering, no they don't. Wood or other fuels is placed in the can and ignited, and thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire to Molech. Rather, there can be multiple realities that compete for truth. You can't get into a flame war if no one responds to your criticism. The king's sword thus symbolizes a role as a warrior with a duty to defend his kingdom.
A grouch's mission in life is to be as miserable and grouchy as possible and pass that feeling on to everyone else. Only then will a grouch feel in touch with his or her world and be happy.
In a photo of a distant scene, all distant objects are perceived as smaller than when we observe them directly using our vision. Do you see yonder cloud that's amongst in the shape of a camel? If not, the broker has the right to close sufficient positions to meet the amount called by way of margin.
The mass of water becomes trapped between the beach and the first sandbar. When the waves scintillate with bright green sparks, I believe it is generally owing to a minute crustacea. The word idiot ultimately comes from the Greek noun idiotes, a private person, individual, as opposed to the state. A lot of scientific research went into the design, the creation, and the computer animation of the creatures, right down to the detail of every joint, every vessel, and every move they make.
The bartender looks at them and says, "What is this, a joke?"
Mr. Fardian.
In fact, many factors combine to cause a chain of events that can lead to a failure.
Isagrim.
They include the Swedish saying, "to slide in on a shrimp sandwich," which refers to those who did not have to work to get where they are. This motto is widely on coins, monuments, and documents. In politics, it is viewed as the divine justification of a king's rule. For, after all, how do we know that 2 and 2 make 4?
Grouches are an eccentric version of pessimistic, argumentative and unhygienic furry creatures who prefer to live wherever there is garbage. Trash cans, Oscar's preferred choice, city dumps, even the occasional landfill, although some grouches live in old cars, broken down houses, and Oscar remarks some live in yucky, beautiful houses.
As such, they have no relation to words or the conflicts, which are designated by verbal names at best. They can tell us that we are heading in the wrong direction or that our current activities are not sustainable. Well-managed reefs have an average annual yield of 15 tons of seafood per square kilometre.
But when it comes to writing, any distinctions that begin with an objective and external quality like size are bound to be misleading.
When people ask me what I do for a living, I tell them I love.
Chaos regions formed long ago.
Declaration of war is one of them.
Now let the world go as it will. I care for nothing more. Last words are for fools who haven't said enough.